Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Dial It Up. As you can tell, we kind of changed cameras. We're having a little bit of issues with audio on our other iPad, so I'm using Jason's MacBook, so you might see different quality in the video, but hopefully everything will still turn out good for us. So Heroclix is a game that has been around for a long time. For those of you that aren't aware, Heroclix first came out in 2002, which means that this is a game that is actually 12 years old. For this game to keep going, keep being interested and having players invested in it, it is a game that has constantly evolved. With it being evolving, new game elements, tricks, everything like that, whole bucket of has been added into the game. I'm talking about character cards, traits, improved targeting, improved movement, resources, relics. These are all things that did not exist 12 years ago. And with this comes the complication of making sure that the rules are also updated alongside of these elements that are introduced into the game, which means that the rules team does at times have to go back and revisit older rules to make sure that they are more up to date with what is happening currently in the game. One of such rules is a clarification that came down earlier this month in regards to game effects and pulse wave. Now it's more specifically to pulse wave, but it is actually listed as just anything that would cause a game effect to be ignored, which at the moment is pulse wave. We don't really have too many other things other than a few special abilities here and there that actually ignore game effects. So without actually saying pulse wave, this new rules is about pulse wave. So as it reads, when a character is affected by a game effect that states to ignore all effects that character can use, all game effects of game elements assigned to that character are ignored for that character, except those game effects related to scoring, turning of a dial, attaching or detaching game elements, or removing game elements from the game. So that's a lot of game jargon, a lot of technical speak that has confused a lot of players since this ruling has come down. This ruling came out in effect to a lot of players, judges, myself included, were kind of hounding the rules team to make a decision when it came to the emotional spectrum trait of the Sinestro Core battery. If you read or if you watch my video about the emotional spectrum traits, I do go on about how the Sinestro Core battery is not affected by pulse wave. I am now wrong because of this new ruling, but I'm not wrong for the reason that I said I was right. To that effect is that the power batteries still are not affected by pulse wave. None of that has changed. All of their game effects are still going to be in play during pulse wave. They are still a resource, not a character, so you cannot pulse wave them, can't target them with pulse wave. They're not going to be ignored. However, because these are resources, a brand new resource that has been added to the map, much like a character would be added to the map instead of being off of the map, it created a new game state and a new game element in the form of friendly core members. This is a game title that has been given to characters that are assigned constructs so that that character and the power battery are connected with each other. This is a game state that didn't exist beforehand when this rule used to exist. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, this rule used to exist just for the fact of saying that resources assigned to characters will be ignored during pulse wave. When you have all of your effects ignored, that means that anything assigned to you from a resource or a relic is also going to be ignored. And they had to expand that to include this brand new game state in of the friendly core member. So it is not the actual power batteries that are being ignored, it's the game state of being a core member that's being ignored, which means you're not going to get the improved constructs bonuses, and you're not going to get some, not all, of the emotional spectrum traits while you're being pulse wave, while your game effects are being ignored. The second part of this is saying that it doesn't ignore scoring, it doesn't ignore turning of a dial, doesn't ignore attaching detaching game elements or removing game elements from the game. What that means is that certain game elements have their own rules, and their rules aren't going to be ignored. So when you have a character that has been KO'd from a pulse wave and they had a relic on them, you're still going to roll that. You're still going to score that relic. If a character has an entity assigned to them where that dial is going to spin with the character's dial, that dial will still spin if they're the target of pulse wave. You're not ignoring that effect. If you are assigned a construct or a Phoenix Force fragment, when your character is KO'd, those fragments are still going to go back to the resources because that's a game effect that you're not ignoring. So basically, anything the character can use, any of their game effects, powers, anything from a resource. Now, all resources, including the power battery, all of those game effects are going to be ignored, but Pulse Wave still goes on to all of its regular ruling. So anything outside of the area effect is still going to affect the inside. Any special powers that says they can't be ignored are still not going to be ignored. So this doesn't change any fundamentals about Pulse Wave. All this is really doing is expanding the net of the rule that resources were being ignored during a Pulse Wave attack. So that now it's going to catch these power batteries in that net, but also prepare them for anything that comes out in the next coming years that introduces any new game states, new game elements. Now we have this rule that we can fall back on, seeing that these game elements are still going to be ignored as they are still game effects that are being used by the character whose game effects are being ignored. So hopefully that was a lot better for you guys to understand that new rules clarification that has come down. If you have any comments, questions, anything you think I didn't cover in this rules clarification, let me know down below, and we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Dial It Up.